Chapter 25 War with Amalek. That evening, the Israelites were surprised to see the sky darkened by vast flocks of birds. This appeared to be an unusual migration of fowl to a more satisfactory climate. Suddenly, the birds swooped groundward, alighting right among the people. Because the birds were weary from what had obviously been a long flight, they were very easy to catch. And within minutes, uncounted thousands of these plump quail, excellent for eating, were being prepared for dinner. The next day there was another miracle. During the night, dew had settled on the plants around the camps. Instead of being covered with moisture the next morning, the plants were decked with small, flaky white particles. This was puzzling for the Israelites until Moses made the surprising announcement that it was the bread God had promised. Early every morning, 3 quarts of this food should be gathered for every person, Moses disclosed. If it isn't taken early, it will melt on the plants under the hot sun. And don't try to keep it overnight, or it will spoil. The people swarmed out around their camps to easily gather the food which they later named manna. To their enjoyment, they found it tasted like fresh bread and honey. Those who were late in gathering it found only a little. Most of it had already melted. And in spite of Moses' warning about keeping it overnight, some did just that, only to find that it had become disgustingly odorous and worm-infested. The Sabbath commanded. One day, not long after the manna first showed up, Moses told the people to gather twice as much the next morning. 2 days later, no manna appeared. That day was the weekly Sabbath. Furthermore, the extra manna gathered for the 7th day miraculously remained fresh and pure as when it was collected. Observing the Sabbath day properly was important to God and man. Nevertheless, some spent much of the morning hours of the Sabbath searching for manna that wasn't there. This was so displeasing to God that he instructed Moses to tell the people to stay close to their tents on the Sabbath and refrain from working. After that, for a time, there was more obedience in this matter. The cloud continued to lead southeast and into a mountain range. A hot, upward march faced the people just at a time when their water supply was dangerously low. The next time the Israelites camped, a noisy crowd of them surrounded Moses' tent to loudly accuse their leader of purposely taking them into the desert to meet their death. Exodus chapter 17, verses 1 through 3. Water from a rock? Again, Moses asked God to calm the complainers, who were only causing others to be troubled. God told Moses, who was afraid that some of the angrier people would try to stone him to death, that he should take some of the elders and go on ahead to a certain large rock which he was to strike with the shepherd's rod he had used in Egypt. Moses did as he was told. Out gushed streams of clear water which flowed down toward the Israelites' camps. Exodus chapter 17, verses 5 and 6. The sight of water flowing past their tents and down toward the rear of the column brought a joyful surprise to the excited people. At first, the stream was murky from picking up dirt from the ground, but with each passing minute, the flow of it became clearer and more drinkable. When the people learned from the elders who had accompanied Moses that the water was gushing from a boulder of granite where there had been no previous sign of water, they marveled at the miracle. Those who had threatened Moses regretted doing so. They wouldn't have acted so childishly if they had relied on God. Because of the wonderful supply of water, the Israelites hoped they could stay a few days in the area, which was close to where Moses had shepherded flocks a few years previously. Days passed, and the cloud continued to remain motionless, which was a sign to stay. An enemy arrives. However, the Israelites would have been troubled greatly and might have wanted to move on if they could have known that from some nearby foothills, many pairs of crafty eyes were watching their position to determine their numbers and their possessions. The attack on the Israelites came at night. Moses wasn't very surprised. He was aware that the region was roamed by bands of hostile desert bandits who used darkness and surprise to further trouble their victims. He also knew these men were Amalekites, descendants of Esau, twin brother of their forefather Jacob. Their attackers were therefore their distant cousins. Joshua comes on the scene. After the Amalekites attacked and fled, one of Moses' officers, a young man named Joshua, was given the responsibility of mustering an army of defense from among the Israelites. The Amalekites were expected to attack in greater force the next day. Joshua had little time to assemble his men. Exodus chapter 17, verse 9. The Israelites' first battle with an enemy was an unusual one. Hordes of fierce, wily desert swordsmen charged in among thousands of untrained men armed mainly with knives, clubs, and weapons taken from the Egyptians. Moses was up on a high ridge where he could view the fray. With him was Aaron and a brother-in-law Hur. It appeared that the Israelites were facing certain defeat, so Moses called to God for help, holding his shepherd's rod above him as he had done to signal divine power at the time of the plagues. It was difficult to determine in the first few minutes of fighting which side was gaining the upper hand. When it began to be obvious the Amalekites were falling into retreat, and when Moses was certain of it, he relievedly lowered his arms, which were becoming very tired. Almost immediately the situation changed, and with renewed energy the Amalekites charged back, causing the Israelites to fall back. Realizing his relaxed attitude affected the fighting, Moses again held the rod up. The startling result was that the tide of battle swung back into the favor of the Israelites. However, he was becoming too tired and his arms to maintain that prayerful position. Again he lowered the rod, and again the Amalekites pushed the Israelites back.